Hey, this is Leah from Mandala Studios. Welcome to the workshop. Today I'm going to be sculpting the first part of a mushroom mask. This is, I think, the Yelk from Orion Sphere, so it's for a character of that race. This is our concept art. We also have measurements for the glasses for that to make sure that that fits nicely. So what we're going to do with this one is, you can see from the picture, it doesn't cover the mouth, so we're going to go draw a line down here to show the limits of where we're sculpting to. Let's go down to there. We've got the bracket fungus which are coming up the side of the head, or the shelf mushrooms. So we'll bring that line around and up there. These are going to go, they're going to be mounted on a balaclava, and they're going to have hair added on top of that. So we need to make sure that the line along the top, I'll show you from the side, comes far enough back that there is something there to attach the hair to, and so that there will be balaclava, but so that the line between latex and balaclava is hidden underneath the hair. That one's far enough back, so I'm going to bring this up, side of the head there, probably about there, and I'll mirror that on the other side. Move on to showing you the actual sculpting. I might stop and show you some little bits as we go.
So to start with, we're blocking out the sculpt. We're getting a thickness of clay all over the head within the lines that we've drawn on there already. At the moment I'm mostly cutting slabs of clay. They're of even thickness, determined by the clay cutter, so probably about 1 centimetre I think. You can just see I'm going along the edges of the lines there and trying to get an initial shape on. Cut out the eyes. We're following that line we drew down the side of the nose. We're working out how far back it's going, and I think we did adjust things slightly compared to the line there. I do a lot of smoothing on this one because I want to try and get the right shape and the right look to it so I can actually see what's missing and what isn't. And one of the things we thought about here is once we mould this, we need to be able to get it off the head again. And so we've put a thickness of clay over the ears, so that because that will give us enough space for ears to exist underneath it, but also means that we can build something up so that we don't end up locking the one-part mould onto the head. I'm thinning it down a bit because actually it looked better when it was closer to the face on there, and I'm going to have to thin this side down to match, I think. But yeah, that's evening things up on the top, making sure it goes nicely back to the line and we've got a good clear line at the back edge of our sculpt. It's larger than the head to account for latex shrinking by about 5%. And we're getting it really smooth, and so we've got a nice shape that we can put our mushrooms on. It doesn't look at all porridgey, and putting just a little bit of mushroomy texture on before we start. So the drawing, if you remember, the drawing had some glasses on it, and we have the measurements for the glasses here, and I'm drawing a mock-up of those so that I can try that on the sculpt, make sure it sits nicely over the eyes, make sure that when I put the mushrooms on, they don't interfere with where the glasses are. So I'm just drawing a pair of glasses that match the ones we've been given, cutting those out. That's just out of LD45 foam. We have a lot of that in the workshop. And in a second, there we go, we'll put those on. So we thought long and hard about the mushrooms, and then we went to the local supermarket and bought some. These are mostly bracket fungus. One of them was oyster mushrooms, I can't remember what the other one was. And we're hot gluing them down to a piece of acrylic. It still has its cover on, means we can pull the cover off and use it for stuff later. And we're just getting a variety of different mushrooms, different sizes and shapes, and we're going to make a silicone mould for those. So this is Wookie cutting out the walls for the mould. He'll cut several strips, and we'll use those to enclose the mushrooms, so that we can coat them in silicone and have that as our mould there. The hot glue along all the edges, it's got to be everywhere in order to make sure that we've got a really tight seal and we don't lose silicone through those gaps. There we go. You see it going around just finishing up every edge, just making sure everything is nicely sealed in. Silicone, the white stuff is the silicone. It's going onto scales so we know the weight of it, and then we're adding a little bit of catalyst. Again, we do that by weight. That gets mixed, so we mix that a lot. You can see the scales in that one just in the back. And mixed until it's a nice even colour. And once that's done, it goes into the vacuum chamber. That gets all the air out of it, so we have a nice silicone to work with. rises up a couple of times and then collapses. And then it's ready. Get the jug out. This took several jugs of silicone, so we're just showing you the one, but you'll note we're pouring off the edge of the mushrooms themselves so the silicone can flood around them. That means that we don't get the trapped air bubbles. So once our mould is done, we remove the box around the edge, and we remove the acrylic, trim all the edges, sand everything down. You can see we have got one there that hasn't been completely covered. It was a massive mushroom, so we abandoned that one. In fact, it would have been too big for the head. And at this point we start cleaning the mushrooms out. This took us ages. Once we've got all the mushroom out of the moulds, we've got some oil-based clay heated up in the microwave, and we're just pouring that back in. Lots of vibration to make sure we've got no air gaps and it's gone into all the gills and got all the lovely detail. And we can, from that, pop out an awful lot of mushrooms. It looks a lot like chocolate. We didn't eat any. There you go. So once we've trimmed our clay mushrooms, worked out which sets we've got and how we're going to use them, we can work out where we're going to put them. And in this case, they're going down the two sides and across the top. We've got to leave space for the glasses in the middle. There we go. See with the glasses on. And we're sort of working out an arrangement of mushrooms that looked really nice, worked nicely, and did any trimming we needed. I'm roughening up the clay so we've got a bit of texture to stick them to. I'm also using a slip there, so clay slip, really wet clay, on the back of the mushroom to make sure we haven't got any air gaps and to make sure everything sticks nicely together. And I'm smoothing around the edges to make sure it blends in nicely to the main head. There we go. I think we have two different types of mushrooms. The ones on the left are our oyster mushrooms, the ones on the right are the other mushrooms. And across the forehead we've sort of got a blend of the two, so it mixes quite nicely. I spent quite a lot of time arranging them to try and get the right sort of look, to make things look right. And you can see a little bit of the mushroom texture on the top of the head there. But once we'd stuck them on, with all the clay and stuff, we need to do another texture, so this is Wookie going over the whole thing with talc. And then he's going to go back and put some more of the mushroomy texture in between the mushrooms on the head, so it doesn't have the rough surface, it's got a nice smooth one. So that's a piece of foil he's using there, just to add a nice even texture all over around those mushrooms and make the whole mask look more homogeneous. Lots of lovely texture. So that is part one of our making a Yelk mask video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.